Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over this pistol that you see in my hands and that you saw throughout the intro so far. This is the Glock 19X. A lot of people have been waiting for me to review this gun, and I got this one in from Brownell, so big thank you to them for sending this out for the review. And I've been shooting it for a few months now. We've got just over 1,000 rounds through it at this point. I've had a grand total of 0 malfunctions, so that is good news for sure. Basically, some things to address here on the history and the lineage of this pistol. This one is sort of the outgrowth of the Army's MHS system pistol that Glock submitted for trials. Ultimately, of course, SIG won that contract with the X17 and the X18 pistols that are out there. This is a variant of what was submitted for that contract. The contract gun actually had an external safety, which was a requirement of it. And then this pistol, I guess, as you see it here, also kind of has its lineage from the FBI's new pistol. So sort of started out with the FBI requirements, turned into what was, the FBI pistol that you guys know now. And then the Army came up with some additional requirements that influence what you see here. And then for the civilian market, they removed the external safety, and basically that is the gun that you see here. So one thing a lot of people said when this pistol was released was that it's backwards, right? So it has the 17 length slide, or rather frame, with the 17+1 or 19+1 capacity, and a 19-ish length slide. Now, Glock not listening. There's some truth to that. Some people said they wanted the 17 length, so that way you get the full sight radius, the full velocity, and you get the reduced grip length, so that way for concealed carry it would be easier. Now that's true for somebody who's going to carry at the 4 o'clock position or the 3 o'clock position, but for somebody who carries appendix like a right-handed shooter or a left-handed shooter like this, then this is actually easier to carry. So pros and cons there. For people say Glock not listening, that's not true. A lot of people wanted the MHS pistol that was absolutely out there. A lot of people wanted it for collectible reasons, and then when this one came out, the 19X here, the sales have actually been well beyond what they actually expected. The sales reports out there are just kind of insane, but basically for a non-concealed carry oriented pistol, this one's been the #1 seller in 2018 since they released it. So it's been selling like crazy. So Glock was definitely listening at some point. Now whether or not someday they come out with what you guys say you want, who are detractors of this pistol, which of course I was originally as well, I should point out, with the 17 length slide and the 19 length grip, we shall see. My guess is that's probably going to be like the Glock Gen 6. But anyway, enough yapping from me. What we're going to do here is actually test the accuracy of this pistol, which we don't typically do, but since they make accuracy claims with that new marksman barrel, we'll test that out here, then get into the details of the actual pistol. There's a lot going on here, and then at the end we'll wrap it up and let you know what we think of it overall. One of the big marketing points from Glock anyway on these Gen 5 guns, to include the 19X, is that it has the new marksman barrel in there. So the barrel is different than the traditional Glock polygonal or polygonal rifling. So this one here has a recessed crown and it's supposed to have a better lockup as well. So we're going to actually test the accuracy of this pistol here. We're going to target downrange at 25 yards. We have a CTK precision rest, Mark 1 eyeball in my head, and the trigger here is just the factory trigger, so nothing too fancy. And we got some night vision sights on there, which should help a little bit over the factory one. So got 4 different loads to put through it. I think it's going to run the gamut from light to heavy loads, and we'll just see how it does. So first up is going to be some 115 grain total metal jacket stuff from Minuteman Munitions. This is, just practice ball ammo, and we'll see how it does. Well, I'd say it's pretty safe to say it doesn't really like that load, but the results are what they are. We're going to roll with it. Next up is going to be some 147 grain. This is the Winchester Ranger load with the bonded 147 grain bullets. So we'll see how it likes the heavier stuff. Well, looks like we tightened it up a little bit outside of that first shot, so we'll load up a couple extra loads here. We have the 124 grain plus P. This load is the XDEF. It's a bonded bullet from Freedom Munitions. So we'll load some of that first. And then after that, we're gonna load some, I believe 124 grain Federal HST. And we'll see how it does. And I'll fast forward through the loading process. And the next load you guys are gonna see getting shot is gonna be this HST. That group there looks pretty decent too. Alright, the next load will be the Freedom Munitions XDEF 124 grain plus Ps. Let's go check them out. All in all, I think the groups are pretty good, at least my initial reaction. We'll see once I actually start measuring them here. So the first group up was that 115 grain. Total Metal Jacket, just practice stuff there from Minuteman. And we're right at 3.5 inches on that one, center to center. Then we came over here with the Winchester, we have 147 grain, the bonded load. And that one tightened it up a little bit, or right there. 2 3/4, regardless of how you measure it. Then we came here with the I believe that was the 124 grain HSTs. Almost positive. Yeah, that's definitely much, much better. We're right at 2 inches center to center on that one. And then this was the XDEF. Outside of that one, it was a really good group, but we count them all. So we're gonna be right at about 3.25 inches on that group there. So, you know, with a factory trigger, with this guy behind it, 2-inch group, not mad about it. Plenty accurate for most folks, but an interesting thing on this is that, you know, folks always ask, do the sights shoot point of impact, point of aim? Every single one of these, I was holding dead center hold on each of these dots. So it's important to know that, you know, each of your loads will shoot a little bit differently, particularly when you step out to 25 yards. So that's pretty much it. Let's move on with the review. Getting into the details of the pistol, we'll start down here at the base of the grip and sort of work our way forward so we have some semblance of order. First off, the magazines. It comes with 3 magazines. It comes with 2 19-rounders like you guys see here. They are, of course, that FDE finish on there. They have the Glock Factory +2 base plate, and then it does have a black follower. I've seen some folks out there on the interwebs say that theirs came with the orange Gen 5 follower. That's not the case here for me anyway. Just passing that along, and of course it comes with a 17-rounder with the flat base plate as well. Now, one thing to point out that unlike the Gen 5 mags here, these are actually like basically Gen 4 mags, if you will. The reason I say that is that they do have the ambidextrous slide cut here that you guys can see, or rather magazine cut, I should say, that you guys can see here. But this is a Gen 5 magazine here for the Gen 5 17, and it will not seat. And the reason is this Glock 19X sort of unique grip that comes from the FBI's pistol and the MHS pistol. So it has this sort of finger rest here, which sticks out and prevents the Gen 5 mag, which has the extended base plate here, from actually seating when it goes home. Now, speaking of the magwell, we have a few other things going on here on our 19X. It doesn't have a flared magwell like the Gen 5 Glocks have, and it also has, of course, this little lanyard loop here that is removable. You can push it out here via the back by that little button, and it will come out if you want to. I know some folks like their lanyard loops and some folks don't. For those of you guys who kind of have been in the military, you'll understand why they have that. Anybody who's done, you know, Hands Across America, walking around in the woods looking for your second lieutenant's M9 that he dropped because he didn't have it tied down will know exactly why that lanyard loop is a requirement for the military, but for a lot of civilian folks, probably not something that they're looking at. Now, here we have our Gen 5 Glock 17. You guys can see the differences there in the magwell. It has that big flare on there. And this is an early Gen 5. It has the finger cutout here, which was intended to align with that magazine to allow it to be stripped and ripped for a double feed. The new Gen 5s that are coming out as of this video being made do not have this. They did away with that, and I think that's a good thing as well. Now, again, for the 19X here that we're talking about, it doesn't matter because it's not going to have that, and this is the design going forward. Continuing up here on the grip itself, it does have the Gen 4 texturing on there, which is sort of a good balance between being too aggressive where it would tear up your skin or clothing if you're carrying the pistol, and not being aggressive enough whereas the pistol would move around in your hands should you be sweaty, your hands be wet, bloody, etc. It does a good job of sort of staying in your hand and not moving around on you. I've shot this gun pretty much, I think, every single time we've had it out, with the exception of when I was in Tennessee shooting it. For the first shots video, it's been over 100 degrees, and I've had no issues with the gun moving around due to my hands being sweaty, because they have been each time. It does come with the additional back straps if you guys want to build it out and increase the grip width there on the grip. I have pretty big hands. I've kind of come to like this one here, the Gen 4 and the Gen 5 dimensions. I used to always add the back strap. Now I pretty much don't, and just shoot it as is, and I do like it. So that is nice. Now moving up here to the mag release. It is not ambidextrous, however it is reversible, so if you want to put it over here on the right side of the pistol, you can swap it to do so. And like we said earlier, the mags of course are cut for either or. I do prefer a reversible mag release rather than an ambidextrous mag release, because sometimes with the ambi ones, they tend to push on your hand when you're gripping the pistol and you have to rotate it around. That is absolutely not the case here with this Glock 19 one here, and this one has a little bit of an enhancement in terms of size to it over like the original Glock 17s, but I've never accidentally bumped it or anything like that, so no issues there in terms of that. I'm sure many of you already noticed, but one thing that is ambidextrous is the slide lock and slide release that you guys can see here. On the Gen 5 pistols, as well as the 19X, it has a little bit more protrusion than it would with like the Gen 1 through 4s. I found that on some guns, like for instance my Gen 5 19, I was accidentally actuating it. That said, I've never had it happen with the 19X nor the Glock 17 Gen 5. I don't know what it is, guys. It's just something with the way my hands fit on there, but it's never been an issue with this pistol. But just wanted to point that out because it may be an issue for some of you guys. But moving forward, the trigger on this gun has the updates that most of the Gen 5s out there will have to this date, and it's awesome. In my opinion, it's the best factory Glock trigger that has ever been released, and there's a bunch of stuff that went into it. Basically everything in it is new, from the trigger bar, the plunger, the spring assembly, the locking block, all of that stuff. It has the flat surface there, unlike the serrated 19s would have due to import laws here in the US. So feels good there on your actual trigger finger. It has a little bit more tactile take up than your previous generation of Glock triggers, and then it hits a wall. Same break in terms of weight, so it's still going to break if I pulled out the scale here right around 6.5, rather 5.5 to 6 pounds, but it's just a cleaner break. The reset is a little bit more predictable. Glocks have always had very good tactile audible resets, but it's more predictable here, and you just have more feedback as you're breaking the trigger with this than any of the other Glock triggers that I've shot previous to this one. Of course, the other Gen 5s that are coming out now all have that trigger as well, but it is shared on the 19X, which is a very good thing in my opinion. Moving forward there, we do have our standard Glock rail, so any of your accessories that are outfitted to work with Glocks, lasers, lights, etc. will work just fine here on the 19X as well. The pistol is sort of like a 50 Shades of FDE. I guess they were inspired by FN out there with not being able to make both the slide and the frame the same color, but I think it looks kind of cool. It has what's called the PVD finish on there, or NPVD finish. You guys can see we have a little bit of holster wear going on up there up front, but it's a good finish in terms of obviously giving you the color that Glock wants, and it's very durable, it's very corrosion resistant, and overall we've not had any issues with it. It's not like super slippery or anything like that. You can still get a good grip there on the serration to actuate the slide when you want to, so no issues there. The sights that it comes with from the factory are actually Glock's all steel 3-dot night sights, so kudos to Glock for that. All of the 19Xs come with the night sights standard from the factory. You guys who watch the channel know I've been a sort of a critic of the Glock polymer sights, and that is not an option here on the 19X. I do like that. However, that said, I did change these out to the night vision sights that you guys see here. It's got sort of a subdued single dot there in the rear with a square notch, and then of course the bright white outline there up front to draw your eye in there. Now it does have the Gen 5 sight settings, which is a little bit different than the Gen 1 through 4. So just if you guys are going to go with aftermarkets, just make sure they're compatible there with the Gen 5s. Most of them out there are going to be, but all in all, the sights that it comes with from the factory are good sights. I just think these are a little bit better in my opinion, but no need to change them if you don't want to. Disassembly of the pistol is pretty straightforward, but we're going to walk you through it, and we're also going to show you some of the parts that are new on the actual pistol itself as we walk through it. Now, one thing I want to point out is that right here on the right we have our Gen 5 Glock 17. This, of course, came out before the 19X in most places, and you guys can see there the actual ejector is different there, and I just kind of wanted to point that out because also what's different here on the 19X is also going to be the trigger assembly. We'll put the actual part numbers down below for you guys as to what they currently are. But basically, what I understand is that all Gen 5s going forward are going to have those two parts, and the reason that they actually made the switch was that some of the Gen 5s were actually showing the sort of erratic ejection or brass to the face that some of the Gen 4 Glocks had. Glock has changed that. As you guys have seen throughout this video, I've not had any of that at all here with the 19X. And one thing it also does is it helps prevent any type of limp wrist malfunctions that could happen with any polymer gun, but particularly with 9mm Glocks, and we didn't have any issues with that at all. So kudos to Glock for actually making the changes to it and actually admitting it. Now, I think Glock hasn't really put that out publicly, but the part numbers are out there, so you can order them, and I think Glock just kind of doesn't want to admit that maybe they did have a problem previously, but at least they've solved it, and again, we've had no brass to the face type issues at all on this pistol. So one thing to point out is that you look inside the slide there, it has sort of a purplish hue to it. I actually asked my viewers when I got this in if that was normal, and a bunch of people had the exact same coloration there. It's just kind of part of the NPVD process from what I understand, so no issues there at all. One thing to point out here is this Glock marksman barrel. You guys can see it showing some wear on there, but this has the NDLC finish on there, and it does have the enhanced polygonal rifling that Glock has put on all their marksman barrels, and it also has the protected reverse crown there. So should you have any sort of impact to the end of your barrel, it's less likely to degrade accuracy or give you any kind of issues downrange. I do like the enhanced marksman barrel. It's very accurate, as you guys have seen. So no issues there at all, and you guys can see the different trigger part numbers there on the actual pistol itself. And one big difference, of course, in the trigger that I didn't mention earlier is that this is a 2-pin design. So with the Gen 5s and of course the 19X, they went back to the 2-pin. So kind of the early Gen 1 and Gen 2 Glocks had that. They went back to it. So they have the different lock and block there, and then the different trigger parts throughout, but it still has the Glock safe action system, so it's completely drop safe, and lots of people have tested that theory over the years, and Glock has always come out good in that regard, so kudos to them for that. Another difference that you may notice for those who don't have the Gen 5s out there is that it has sort of the Glock 43 inspired striker safety there. It's a little bit smoother in terms of take up there in the trigger, at least what I've found. So I'm glad they rolled it over here on the Gen 5 as well as the 19Xs. But reassembly, same thing as previously. Just slide it back on there, reassembled, and ready to go. A lot of details going on there for sure, but we discussed reliability already. You guys have seen the accuracy. Price point is definitely something to discuss. It comes in, I believe, at $649 MSRP over at Brownells. Without any kind of coupons, it's $5.99. And then, you know, sometimes if you guys follow me on Facebook, you know that there are coupons that can make it a little bit cheaper for you guys. So if you're not following me on Facebook, go ahead and do so for those links when they do come up. So price point wise, it's not cheap. It's going to be a little bit more expensive than some offerings out there, but it's certainly not super expensive either. And like I said, it comes with night sights, which is nice, and 3 magazines, so that's nice as well. So price point's not really horrific in my opinion, but it's not cheap either. So there is that. One other point I should have mentioned when I had it disassembled is that this pistol actually comes with the maritime spring cups. So for those that don't know what that is, it's a small issue, but it was part of the Army contract. So it retains that. So that way it gives you a little bit more area for gunk, water, oil, whatever the case may be, to flow through the striker channel as the striker is going forward. It's intended to fire underwater or when the actual striker channel is full of water for maritime operations, but it's actually included here in the 19X as well, which is kind of a fun feature for those of you guys that don't know that. Now, let's talk about the actual shooting experience. The trigger's awesome, like we talked about. Again, I was kind of one of the detractors that said this was the mullet Glock when it came out, and that it should have been the other way around. However, let me back up and say that my initial thoughts on that were correct in some regards, i.e. you will lose velocity and sight radius. However, the shooting impulse of the 19X is excellent. I'm not sure if it's less mass reciprocating combined with the full-size grip. I suspect that's what it is. But this right now is my favorite Glock to shoot. It's just very enjoyable to shoot. It sticks in your hand. It has a good grip texturing. It's got a good trigger. The recoil impulse is super smooth. It's light, it's fast to follow up with. I like the gun. I'm a fan. It's won me over for sure. I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, and I do. I love it. It's a great gun. Now, it still retains the Glock grip angle, which is something that I know some folks don't like. Now, I came up shooting Glocks. I didn't grow up with guns like a lot of you guys did in the house, so I didn't shoot a gun until I was an adult, and one of the first ones I shot was a Glock, so the Glock grip angle to me is not weird. For some shooters, though, it will present a little bit strangely. That's really it, guys. I think we've covered most of it. If you guys have any questions that we haven't covered here, please go ahead and post those down below in the comment section. You can also post them over at my Facebook page as well that I already plugged shamelessly. But if you guys are new here and you like what you saw, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you guys have been subscribed for a while, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for subscribing and supporting the channel. Thank you to all of you guys out there watching, and I hope to see everybody in the next video.